Why is it that a lot of people are out on the streets? It's not just students, it's also Muslims, it's also Hindus, it's also Dalits, it's also Adivasis. A lot of people are out on the streets and protesting against the Citizenship Amendment Act, which the government claims is only to enable the religious persecuted minorities in the three Islamic nations nearby, that is Afghanistan, Bangladesh and Pakistan, and enable them to give an early citizenship, a positive legislation. Why is it that all these people, the people whom you call as urban Naxals, the Tukde Tukde gang, the seculars, the Muslims, Islamists, why is it, all these people have come together and are opposing a positive legislation for religiously persecuted minorities in the nearby Islamic countries? First thing is that we have to understand Citizenship Amendment Act as Amendment Act which has been brought in right now is indeed a positive legislation. It enables the religious persecuted minorities in, not all minorities, but a few minorities in 3 countries which are only the Islamic majority countries. What is the rationale for picking those countries? Nobody can say, because they are not exactly, there cannot be any specific rationale given for selecting those 3 countries except that they are Islamic majority countries. Because if you take a state religion aspect, Sri Lanka has a state religion. If you take a religious persecution matter, then Myanmar and Rohingyas there have been one of the most persecuted community. If you take only South Asia or the countries which were part of India at the time of partition, then Afghanistan was not there at that point of time. So the only criteria that has been brought in is that it should be an Islamic majority country, and so that Muslims can be very clearly excluded. If you would have given to Sri Lanka, which is a Buddhist majority country, then Muslims would have also come into the religiously persecuted minorities, and that has been seems to be the rationale behind the decision. Now, why is it that something which is only affecting a few illegal immigrants who have come across from these 3 countries, and why is it that the entire rest of the country is protesting against that? No. Rest of the country is not protesting against an easy or early fast citizenship to those people. They are protesting against the context and the dangers that the Citizenship Amendment Act is bringing in. The Citizenship Amendment Act has been brought in the context of Assam NRC, and during the Assam NRC, which was an exercise of around 6 years, it took around 52,000 employees and cost the government exchequer around 1,600 crores. And there are various reports that 8,000 crores of people's money were also used during that exercise. And there were suicides, there are mental depression, there is agony, because ultimately when the government comes and says to all of you that prove your citizenship, it becomes very difficult, because what we have taken for granted, we have taken for granted our country, we have taken for granted our constitution, we have taken for granted for our citizenship. But when it comes to prove anything to the government, even for you to prove that you are alive, it's not enough that you are alive. You have to give them a life certificate, and if there is no life certificate, you will not get your pension. So everything depends on documents, and that was what NRC was in Assam, a document-based exercise which will ask citizens to prove that they are citizens. And it went on for 6 years, and afterwards 3 lists, and final list, there are 19 lakh people who are excluded from the citizen list, and out of the 19 lakhs, a majority were Hindus, because document-based exercise does not discriminate between Hindus and Muslims. Document-based exercise is clearly an anti-poor exercise. Because who doesn't have documents? It's the poor who don't have documents. It's the illiterate who will not have documents. It's the people who migrate from rural areas to the cities who don't have documents. It's the people who live in slums and juggies and which often gets burnt. They don't have documents. It's people who are affected by disasters. They don't have documents. It's tribals who don't have documents. It's nomadic tribes who don't have documents. It's women who marry and go off to marital homes in different villages. They're the ones who will not be having documents. So it's clearly an anti-poor exercise, the NRC. But what is that, an anti-poor NRC was not very politically convenient. But what was politically convenient is if this exercise can be made into a Hindu-Muslim issue. And what Citizenship Amendment Act does is that it enables a politically convenient NRC. So you can foresee the result, because even if the result is like majority of Hindus are being shown as not having citizenship, you can also always bring in the Citizenship Amendment Act, the clauses under Citizenship Amendment Act, and say that you don't have to worry, because you are not a Muslim, you will get citizenship anyway. See, we are already citizens. First, we will be shown that we are not citizens, and we will be made to prove that we came from one of these places, and then we will be given our citizenship back. That is what the government is telling to non-Muslims or Hindus, that you don't worry, because even if we take away your citizenship, we will give it back to you. Why should we prove the citizenship to this government? What is the reason? Why is it that the government has shifted the burden of proof onto the citizens? That is one question we are not asking. Now this NRC, this anti-poor NRC has now been made anti-Muslim exercise by a Citizenship Amendment Act. They are not protesting. None of us are, nobody who's on the streets is protesting for the rights of Pakistani Muslims or Bangladeshi Muslims or Afghan Muslims. No. What is being fought for is, one is the idea of India, the second is the constitutional values, and the third is what would happen to those Muslims who don't have documents, those poor Muslims who will not have documents. Hindus, yes, ultimately you will give them whatever harassment they have to go through. There will be a lot of harassment like we saw in demonetization, but whatever be that harassment, ultimately you will get back that money like you got in ATMs after some time. And imagine, citizenship is the right to have all of the rights. If you don't have citizenship, you don't have many of the rights. And right now, even after being a citizen, we are afraid to ask these government questions. And if, imagine, our citizenship itself is questioned, will we ever be in a position to question the government? This, coupled with the clear-cut communal Citizenship Amendment Act, is what makes the Muslims of the country jittery. When an NRC happens, the rich Muslims might be able to get the documents. The people who are connected to the government might be able to get the documents. But a lot of poor people will not be able to get all these documents. Even if they get, the names in all those documents might not be of the same, like what happened in Assam. And when this happens, what will they do? How will they be able to go ahead? And the government has not come out with what is NRC guideline for a nationwide NRC, but it has very repeatedly said, in fact our Home Minister Mr. Amit Shah has very repeatedly said there would be a nationwide NRC, and he has also repeatedly said NRC and CAB are together. CAB is a, chronologically CAB would come first. He is on record saying this, that chronologically CAB would come first, and it is after that a nationwide NRC that is going to happen. If there is one thing that we should have learned from Assam, the terrible failure there, and in fact the BJP government itself there in Assam is trying to reject the list, is that such an exercise is going to be an exercise in hatred and futility for the entire country. But instead what you have learned is that if you make it politically convenient, if you make it into a Hindu-Muslim issue, then there is a lot of political benefit to be reaped from it. Even though it will take our country 10-20 years back, this is going to be an exercise in hatred, and this is not an exercise like in demonetization where we would be able to recover from. A society which is anxious, a society which is insecure, a society which is doesn't trust each other is not a society that is going to spend, is not a society that is going to help your economy, and that is going to be even people who don't care about all this aspect, even for their own well-being, they should understand this is an exercise that is going to take India backward for a long or a long period of time. And anybody who questions, as I said in the beginning, why anybody is called an urban Naxal, because any educated dissent, any person who is educated and is dissenting with the government is immediately called an urban Naxal, because once you give them that name, then you don't have to respond to the criticism that is raised, or Gaddar, or traitor, anti-national. These are the terms which are immediately given so that you don't have to address the questions that are being raised. This issue also has to be seen in one way. The government has not been able to see through or think through before taking such decisions. In their hurry to take historic decisions like the one called demonetization, entire black money, nothing happened, fake currency, none of that happened, and right now we are where we are, our economy. GST, historic decisions but hurried one, we are where we are. 370, it has been 4.5 months, Kashmir is still under lockdown. There is absolutely no semblance of normalcy. We don't know where it go from here. And NRC and CAB, Assam NRC, we don't know what to do. They are saying reject the list. Now the nationwide NRC, we are going from one decision after the decision without thinking anything through. And just to show that this is a government which takes decision, even though they are utterly foolish decisions, they are utterly dumb decisions, and which are going to take this country a long way back. And this is from this dumbness, this dictatorial kind of dumbness that we have to save this country from. And that is why all of us, it's not a fight for one section or the others. It is a fight for the idea of our country. It is a fight for our future. It is a fight for our children, because tomorrow your son is going to ask, or your daughter is going to ask, what kind of country did you leave for us? Did you leave a country full of hatred for us, or did you leave a country which is happy and full of opportunities for us? And we would have to answer them at one point of time. So this is a fight we'll have to fight, and this is a fight we'll have to win.